Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl. I'm a creative entrepreneur embracing every aspect of life with artistic intention. Join me as I share the way I live and all the tips and tricks along the way. Allow me to inspire you to do the same. Please like, share, or comment on my videos. I'd love to hear from you. And if you subscribe to my channel, you'll be first to know when there's something new. Today we're going to crochet single crochet stitches. And first we're going to start with worsted weight yarn, and then I'll show you how to do it on sport weight yarn and even how to do it on fingering weight yarn. So what we want to do to get started is tie our yarn onto the crochet hook. And we're going to start with a chain. And what that means is you're going to hold your tail in front and your working yarn further away from you, and you're going to push your hook under the yarn with your hook facing down so you can grab the yarn with the hook on your crochet hook and pull it through the loop on your hook, like that. We're going to do a total of 11 chains, and what that means when you're looking back, as you're pulling it through, you would count that as your stitch. Now let's say you lost your space, or you lost your place. You don't count the loop that's on your hook. You're going to count all the loops except for the one on your hook. That's your working loop. It's not a stitch. So to count the chains, we'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the loop. Again, not counting the loop on our hook, so we're going to count 1, 2. We're going to single crochet into that second loop from our hook. So you're going to insert your crochet hook into that chain, grab the yarn with your hook, and pull it through the chain. You now have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull the hook and grab the working yarn and pull it through both loops on your hook. Now, these 2 loops here are your actual stitch. So what I want to do is, first of all, grab a stitch marker. And in crochet, we use something called a split ring stitch marker. And what that means is that it splits open like that. So what we're going to do is, just so we recognize the stitches we do rows after this first row, we're going to insert that stitch marker into the top of our stitch, those first 2 horizontal loops, and we'll close it. And that way we won't forget that that was the first stitch at the beginning of this round when we come back. So now we'll do another single crochet, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over and pull a loop through the chain. You now have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull a loop through both loops on your hook. A second single crochet is now complete. And you can see, if we set our work down, we have 2 horizontal bars here with the stitch marker in it. That's the top of the first single crochet. And now we have 2 horizontal bars to the left of it. That is now our second stitch complete. To do our third single crochet, we're going to insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull a loop through the chain, yarn over and pull a loop through both loops on our hook. Third single crochet is complete. Going to insert our hook in the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, insert our hook in the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and we're going to repeat that in every single chain across this row. So we started with 11 chains, but our first stitch was worked into the second chain from the hook, so that means we're actually doing 11 minus 1, or 10 stitches. Now we're going to use a second stitch marker at the end of the row, and the reason why is because a lot of times as a beginner, it's very, very easy to make a very common mistake of not remembering where the beginning or the end of the row is. which means you could either narrow your strip or increase it too much by working too many or not enough stitches. So until you are really comfortable with the way stitches are looking, or what I call the anatomy of the stitches, you want to just keep a stitch marker at the beginning and end of every row. So now to work a second row, we chain one and turn our work, and now we're going to single crochet into that first stitch that the stitch marker is in. Now what you want to do is put your work down, pull that stitch marker out, and now put it into the top of this stitch, because now we're going to mark this as the beginning of the second row of single crochets. Okay, and then we'll single crochet in every stitch across, meaning the 2 horizontal bars. So you're going to insert your hook into the horizontal bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And we'll repeat that across the entire row, making sure to keep an even number of 10 stitches. We started with 10 stitches. We want to make sure we maintain 10 stitches. If you were doing a scarf, you want it to remain perfectly even. Okay, here's the last stitch at the end of the row with the stitch marker in it. You want to work your single crochet, and then we'll remove that stitch marker and just move it up. We can now put it into the top of the stitch we just completed at the end of row 2. And so now we have 2 rows of single crochet complete. We'll do another row. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work, and we'll single crochet into the 2 loops that are marked with that stitch marker. And then set the work down, remove the stitch marker, and just move it up. And we'll now mark this stitch that we just worked, which is now the first stitch of the 3rd row. And we'll single crochet in each stitch across this row. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So at this point, you could just continue to work rows of single crochets until you reach the length of a scarf. Okay, we're at the end of the row now. We're going to single crochet into the 2 horizontal bars that are marked with the stitch marker. And then we know for sure we've worked into the last stitch at the end of the row. And we'll remove our stitch marker and place it into the 2 horizontal bars of this stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the same exact steps we just did with the worsted weight yarn, only this time I'm going to show you how to do it with a sport weight yarn and a smaller hook. Sometimes I think it's easier to learn stitches on larger hooks and larger yarn, and then once you are comfortable with the stitches, then work with thinner yarns. So we're going to, we tied the knot onto our hook like we did the first time, and we're going to chain 11 times. Okay, then we're going to single crochet in the second chain from our hook, which this one doesn't count, so we're going to skip the first chain and then work into the second, and we'll single crochet into this chain. And let's set our work down and put our stitch markers in again. I really do think that when you're learning, it's very, very important to recognize your stitches. And when we're using thinner yarn, sometimes it's even harder to recognize our stitches. So we want to make sure we mark the 2 horizontal bars of our first stitch with our split ring stitch marker, and then we will single crochet in each chain across, so it'll be a total of 10. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to elongate that stitch so we don't unravel it when we set it down, and insert our stitch marker. Actually, we don't need to do it at the end of this row because we'll do it at the beginning of the row once we chain one and turn. You recognize that that is the stitch. It has the 2 horizontal bars, so we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and single crochet into that first stitch. And now we'll set our work down and mark that first stitch with our split ring stitch marker, and we'll single crochet in each stitch across, working into both of the horizontal bars at the top of each stitch. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And to double check, our 10th stitch is the one with the stitch marker in it. So we'll set our work down now so we can remove that stitch marker. And we'll chain 1, turn our work, single crochet in the first stitch, attach our stitch marker just so we don't forget when we're coming back at the end of the next row, and we'll single crochet in each stitch across for a total of 10. Okay, and as we approach, we want to double check. There is our last stitch, the one that's marked with the stitch marker. And so I can show you side by side now how much smaller that is than our original 3 rows of single crochet. Now I'll show you one more time, only this time I'll show you on a finer weight yarn. We're going to use fingering weight next. And we're going to use it with, we're going to use fingering weight yarn now. We're going to use an even smaller hook. So we'll tie our yarn onto the crochet hook and start with our same chain 11. Okay, so we're going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. The loop on our hook does not count as the first chain, so it's chain 1 and chain 2. And we'll single crochet into that second chain from the hook. We're going to insert our stitch marker into the 2 horizontal bars at the top of this stitch. And single crochet in each chain across for a total of 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We're going to chain 1, single crochet into, turn our work and single crochet into the top of the first stitch at the beginning of the round. Pay special attention to where the 2 horizontal bars are on that stitch. And we're going to insert our split ring stitch marker into the top of those 2 loops, into the top of that stitch, meaning those 2 loops. Okay, and then we'll single crochet in each stitch across for a total of 10 stitches. Okay, that was our 9th stitch, so now we want to make sure we work our 10th one into the 2 horizontal bars that were we have marked with our stitch marker. And then we'll chain 1 and turn and work our single crochet into the top of that first stitch, and we'll remove the stitch marker and mark this new stitch now. Elongate your stitch if you need to so you don't unravel by mistake as you set your work down. To find those 2 horizontal bars and just slip your stitch marker into them so we can mark it for the next row. Okay, and single crochet now into each stitch across for a total of 10. That's our 9th single crochet, and so the 10th one is going to be worked into the loop that is marked. And there we go. Got 3 rows of single crochet, and now I'll show you what those 3 look like side by side. What a difference, huh? This is 3 rows of 10 stitches of single crochet in worsted weight, sport weight, and fingering weight yarns.